Okay, so that's not a touchscreen. But I have been playing Star Citizen for over 2 years now, and most of the time I have been using GameGlass in one way or another. So I started thinking how I could actually incorporate touchscreen into my current setup. And I also reached out to GameGlass and asked if they would like to sponsor this video, and they said yes. So, courtesy of them, I actually have an amazing giveaway here. 2 sets of 10-inch Kindle Fire tablet stand, and 12-month ClassPass to get you started with your own GameGlass setup. More about that at the end of the video. But first, what is GameGlass? It's basically an app that turns your tablet, your phone, or some other touchscreen into a game controller. You can use the ready-made screens, or shards as they are called, for Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, and Flight Simulator 2020. You can also use community-created shards or create your own ones with their forts. And that's what I'm doing with my setup. If you want to try out the GameGlass, you can use my affiliate link, it's in the description, and help the channel just a bit at the same time. And if you end up getting their paid version, you can use promotion code UNDEAD to get 5% discount. Okay, back to the project. How I could add touchscreens into my setup? Well, I could always buy a new touchscreen here, but 27-inch touchscreens are not cheap, and this is actually perfect for my DCS setup. But then I remembered, I have this 15.6-inch old touchscreen from my older setup, so could I somehow utilize the modular overlay setup I have here and use this touch display in some nice and cool way for my Star Citizen setup? So that's the topic of this video. And after I'm done with this one, I also have one small thing in the spirit of if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. I guess that could be my motto at this point. So let's get to the workshop and get started. First thing I need to do is basically cut a suitable size sheet out of plywood for the overlay. I actually have this 9mm plywood, a small piece, I guess this is birch. Next, just need to start measuring and cutting. And once the sheet was cut, it was time for a quick fitting. Next, I need to figure out how I want to attach this touch display into this overlay. I was originally planning something like figuring out that if I should print some sort of trims around this or something like that. But then I realized that this is actually quite clean. Quite simple and clean, so what if I would actually mount it kind of floating on top of it at just some spacers below here? So I think that alone would look quite nice. So it was time to start measuring and drawing. And the track saw really is a great tool for cutting holes inside a sheet of plywood. And finally, attaching the display into the overlay, and it ended up being quite nice. Instead of painting, I decided to use this carbon fiber textured vinyl, and this stuff looks really great. I really need to use this elsewhere in my cockpit too. Finally attaching the bottom plate for the cable cover, and the screws end up being a bit too long, but it really isn't a build project unless angle grinder is involved. I ended up running out of the filament while printing out the cable cover, but in this case I actually decided to leave it as a detail and dry brush some metallic paint on top of it just to make it look just a bit weared down, and it actually ended up being quite nice detail. Okay, the frame is ready, and I have to say it came out looking quite nice, but I did promise you the small overdoing part, and there's the center pillar under the dashboard display, which I don't have currently any use for, but I do have this small old tablet that I was planning to use as a kind of UFC for my Hornet build, but I think this is a bit too big for that purpose for my setup. So what if I'm going to install this into the center column? Also, I already had printed this frame for it, so it's pretty easy to just kind of make a hole for it. And I also have a perfect use case for this tablet, which I'm going to show you a bit later when I start setting things up. But for the first thing I need to do is basically just cut a hole to the frame. Also, I had to make a groove for the cable, and it really didn't end up being too pretty, but at the same time it really doesn't matter since everything is hidden from sight. Okay, basically this setup is now ready. It's perfectly usable. So I guess it would be a good time to explain that what I have going on here. First, it's the one below here, the tablet. That's the basic GameGlass approach. I have GameGlass software installed on my main PC, and I have the GameGlass app on this tablet. So there's nothing special, everything works as it should be. And next, it's the touch display. So this is a bit different setup here that I have going on. The touch display itself is connected to the same PC that I use for the top display here, and I use that PC mostly for stuff like recording my gameplay videos. I have actually just a browser open here in full screen mode, and I have app.gameglass.gg address entered here, and I can use this as with anything else. And for the background for the display, I currently have some sort of visualizer. I think it's called Kaunat. So let's say I would like to get my custom charts here. I can use the force to design these charts. I'm not going into too much detail about the design process. I know at least Subliminal has an excellent guide, so I'm going to link it down the description. But the basic approach is really simple. I open the GameGlass app on my main PC and define how big screen I have here that I'm planning designing this chart for. Then I just basically start dragging stuff to the force. So I can have buttons, I can have switches, and I can have kind of just basic elements here. And once I'm done design, I just can easily bind some keys into this setup. Okay, so my own chart is ready now, and as you can see, this is just kind of basic chart, nothing special with it, just some targeting stuff, scanning stuff, communication stuff. So if I would like to ping here, it sends the ping. And I'm going to publish this public, but just good thing to notice, there are some stuff like cycle log that don't have default bindings, so you might have to go through some settings yourself. Okay, the chart below is a bit different story, because we started using, with our org, we started using this DCS or a simple radio standalone for communications for bigger operations. And it's basically a lightweight VoIP that allows you to have several channels on at the same time, but you're only going to talk into one. So it's made for DCS, but as the name implies, it works as standalone version. So I figured I would actually make the controls to control that if I need to control it in some big operation. Okay, one of the best things here is that since this is touch display, I wouldn't have to remember the radios that what I have in which place. I could basically just go in the Forge and change the settings. Otherwise, I can use any other shard here if I want. Let's say I would like to use the social shard here for the emotes and stuff like that. I could have it open. Okay, so everything is working nicely with my setup. So now the giveaway. Like I mentioned, I have 2 sets of 10-inch Kindle Fire tablet stand, and 12-month Glass Plus to get you started with your own GameGlass setup. All you have to do is, first of all, make sure that you're actually following the channel, and second, comment something below here on the comments. It can be anything, but while you're at it, leave some feedback. Do you like this setup? Am I completely insane for doing it, or basically both? I will be selecting the 2 winners in 2 weeks' time when my next video goes out. And as always, thanks for watching and see you next time.